Hello, everyone. Um, we were supposed to have one more person, but unfortunately, she didn't show. She might be a little late, but we are going to get started. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming to Math Does Matter. Today, we have a special show for you because we're going to talk about math. All right. So I am Adrian Cox-Settles. And I am the owner of Math Does Matter, LLC. I have a tutoring business called Diverse Interactive Learning with 11 amazing tutors. I have tutored math to elementary through college level students and led 2 math departments and in a variety of different settings. I have spent most of my career in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and in PA. In addition to my public career, I have homeschooled, virtually coached, educationally consultant, and math coached. In 2014, I received the Outstanding Teacher of the Year Award from the National Technical Association, and my story was published in the Muslim Link newspaper. Okay, so that's enough about me. I have a special guest here today named Akil Parker, Professor Akil Parker, and he's going to introduce himself.
So I'm glad to be here. Thank you for thinking of me and including me in this conversation. My name, as you said, is Akil Parker. I am the founder and CEO of All This Math. And prior to that, I was a high school math teacher for about 17 years. I still teach. I just don't teach in the formal, traditional public school setting. I do also teach at Cheyney University. I'm an adjunct professor where I teach math methods courses to education majors at Cheyney University. I've also taught like elementary algebra. One semester I did that a few years ago. And but most of my time is dedicated to All This Math and building up All This Math and doing private tutoring with individual students and of various grade levels. Also tutoring homeschool collectives, teaching math courses within homeschool collectives, and doing small group tutoring, for homeschool students and also for schools. There's a school here in Philadelphia that I have a partnership with where I do some virtual pull-out math tutoring with some of the young sisters and brothers in there. So that's a little bit about me and my background, I guess my mathematics background, I guess, if you would say.
All right, so thank you so much for coming, and we appreciate everything you have done thus far. All right, so let's get into it. Now, I'm going to start with you I want to know, what is your math story?
My math story. I like this question. So my math story is, when I was growing up, I was a really strong student in all of the subjects. I was just a person that just did really well in school. Like, I learned like the game of school, like how to be successful. I appreciated like feeling like I was one of the smartest people in class. That was like a good feeling for me. So that was one of the things that propelled me and motivated me. Also the fact that like my father was an educator. So I wanted to, impress him. I didn't want to like, it didn't seem congruent to like have a father that was an educator, but then be, earning poor grades. So that just didn't really make sense to me. So also I like the feedback and the attention I would get from family, relatives, from friends. And, that was my thing. That was, that's Akil. He's like the one that gets the good grades. As I got older, I never really wanted to be a teacher. That was never my goal. Never wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to go into like the finance field, like, investment banking or like trading, something of that nature. After I graduated from Morgan with my bachelor's in finance, I didn't secure a job in those areas. I ended up getting a job in the accounting / auditing type field. I was a bank examiner for the FDIC. I guess technically an assistant bank examiner. If somebody from the FDIC heard this, they'd probably get mad if I describe myself as a bank examiner. They're really big on titles in those types of, government organizations. But technically I was an assistant bank examiner for 1 year, and then that wasn't a really good fit and ended up leaving there. And then after that, I ended up doing some long-term substitute teaching at a charter school down North Philly. Because at the time I relocated to Philadelphia after I graduated from Morgan also. That was another thing. And then I taught geometry for the fourth quarter in this school. And then from there, I decided that I wanted to take education seriously and take teaching seriously. And I became a full-time teacher. I ended up teaching summer school at that school. English though, they just needed a teacher, and I needed some money. So I ended up teaching English that summer to ninth graders that had failed English. And then in the fall, I put in applications. Well, late summer, I put in applications to a lot of local charters in Philly, and one hired me, and from there, I kind of never looked back. I decided that I wanted to teach because I didn't just want to be one of the adults or one of the elders that was just like very, very critical of, young people without really trying to do anything to provide any like guidance to the young people. Like I would see so often, like, adults and elders being very critical of without doing anything, to try to like help. Because, a lot of children just, a lot of children just don't know no better, and they don't know any better because nobody's told them any better. So I decided that I wanted to be, one of the people that was gonna do better. I didn't really, up to that point, even in my early teaching career, I didn't really love math. I kind of appreciated it. It was like just a subject that I just had happened to be good at. I didn't develop a love for math until probably, honestly, within the last 5 years, since I started to go real hard with all this math as a tutoring business, because in doing that, so that's part of it, but also actually teaching at Cheney, and also I taught at LaSalle as well here in Philadelphia, teaching math methods. And as I was teaching math methods, I had to learn a lot of things about the fundamentals of math that I never learned when I was in elementary school or middle school. A lot of the conceptual understanding I gained, because when I was young, I was just really big into like, I could memorize formulas and algorithms, and I knew the procedure and everything, because to me, it was almost like doing math problems was like playing video games. I would just learn the patterns. Oh, this is how you do this. Okay, so when I see this type of problem, I know I got to do this and then do that and then do this, and then I get the answer. Just like with a video game, I'm trying to beat this level. I got to jump here, jump there, run down there, get that weapon, do this, do that. So like the same thing. But I didn't know why it worked, and I didn't really care when I was young. But I noticed that as a teacher in the classroom, it was a deficiency for me as an educator, because I didn't really understand like why the stuff worked. Now, a lot of times the students wouldn't ask those questions, which is kind of unfortunate that a lot of my students didn't have that level of intellectual curiosity to even care why stuff worked. But it used to bother me sometimes, like, that I didn't know like why this worked. And then at the same time, I didn't know what I didn't know. Like I didn't ever really think early in my career to think about like, well, what is really happening when we're multiplying fractions together? Or like, why does keep, change, flip work when we divide in fractions? Like, why does all that work? So from doing the tutoring and being exposed to a lot of different students coming to the table with a lot of different types of math questions and math work, and also from having to teach math methods and really teach myself, like as an autodidactic, like all this conceptual knowledge about math that I never was taught when I was younger. Right. When I really started to gain an intimate understanding of mathematics, and I started to really appreciate it, as a subject and as a discipline, so it became more than just like kind of like a means to an end, or just like one of the random subjects that I had to take when I was in school. So, so I guess I would say overall, early on, I liked math because it was a class that I understood from very early that people that were able to excel in this subject were afforded a certain type of status. And I like that. That was good for my ego as a young child. But I really developed a love for math as a grown man, like as an adult, once I understood the concept behind it and why all these different topics and these concepts, why these different procedures, why they actually work. So that's kind of that's my math story, so to speak.
Okay, that's very good. I mean, yeah, it's very interesting that you found your love for math once you became an adult.
Yeah.
Now, as far as for myself, my math story started in 2nd grade. And my mom took the time to teach me my multiplication tables. And once I learned my multiplication tables in 2nd grade, every grade after that was so easy. And I got excellence in pretty much every time in math. I excelled in math. I was in math competitions. Like I said, I had the highest grades. I went to a good high school. Then, I went to community college. Then I went to Morgan State also. So I went to Morgan State. While going to community college, first of all, I became a tutor. And by me being good at math, I was able to tutor. And also I had a gift of showing people how to learn math.
Mm.
And being good at math and also showing people how to do math or learn math is like a double benefit. And so I became so good at tutoring math when I was in college that I was offered a job by the department head of the college to teach math. At that time, well, I started tutoring when I was at the community college, but then I went to Morgan State. Once I graduated from Morgan State, I was still tutoring, and that's when I got offered the job to teach math. Now, I told her I didn't major in math because I majored in biology with a concentration of pre-med. But she was like, I don't care what your degree is in. I want you to teach because I had such a good reputation. And a lot of people knew me, and they liked the way I tutored, and they like the characteristics that I had. So I took the college position, and once I got into the classroom, that was it. I was no longer thinking about becoming a doctor, no longer thinking about anything else. Math was it for me. And so I taught math there for a year. During that time, I had tutored someone that was studying for a principal test, and she passed her test. So when a job opened up in Baltimore City Public School System, she called me right away and said, I got a job offer for you. If you come down here for the interview, more than likely you're going to get it, more than likely, because I have a space for you. And I know that you're good in math and you're teaching math. So I want to hire you for our school.
Mhm.
So I went, and that's how I got into Baltimore City Public School System. And it's because I tutored someone and she got her position. And the reason, like I said, the reason that I taught community college is that I had a good, people knew me, and that got me in that door. Once I got in Baltimore City as a teacher, I was an excellent teacher. I did very well as a teacher, and I got offered to be a lead teacher or department head from 2 different schools. So I also taught teachers how to teach, and I mentor because I was, considered to be an excellent teacher, and they saw my potential. So that's how I got those jobs. They were like, can you come and teach at my school? So I went from one math department head, and then later on I went to another school and I was a math department head. From there, so many different things happened. From there, let's see. I later on went to an Islamic school to teach. And when I got to the Islamic school, it was a lot of details, but I'm gonna just make it really short. I taught 7th through 12th grade that year, because in private school, sometimes you teach multiple grades. I mean, the middle school teacher didn't come back, so I had stepped up and I went and I taught 7th, 8th, 9th through 12th classes. And remember, girls and boys are separated in Islamic school, so that's a lot of classes. At that particular time, I taught high school girls that were in 9th through 12th. And there was a math competition at Morgan State under the National Technical Association. So I wanted to enter my students into that competition. Now, these were all female students. Now, this pretty much made history because my female students came in all the top positions in the math competition, all my Muslim female students. And so this was like big. They were like, oh my goodness, who's your teacher? And so once, they found out I was the teacher, I was nominated to be the teacher of the year, the outstanding teacher of the year. And then I pretty much got the outstanding teacher of the year for that. And my story was published. And I talked about how I teach, with conceptual understanding, the humanistic way, a lot of differentiation and things like that. But yeah, so that's pretty much. And then afterwards, later on, I created a math tutoring business, and it was just for myself. However, I received so many, I received more clientele that I can handle. So I brought in more math people. And then after that, I brought in other subjects like science, social studies, and so on and so forth. So right now I have like 90 plus services over the years. And so, yeah, so that's pretty much where I am now, from second grade to being good in multiplication all the way up to owning my own tutoring business where I can help people around the USA.
So what that does is that confirms, one of the things that I always talk about is that the multiplication chart, knowing your multiplication facts, at least from 1 times 1 up to 12 times 12 is really the foundation, because there's so much that like comes out of that. Like a lot of the problems my students have had in algebra and geometry is really not the actual algebra and geometry. It's really those fundamentals, like not knowing what 7 times 8 is.
Yes, 7 times 8 is a popular one.
Yeah, like off the top of your head, you just got to know that. Like I tell people, you should be able to recognize when you see like a multiplication equation written on the board, or you hear somebody say it, it should just automatically, you should just know it. The same way, if you see your sister down the block and you know your sister, you know that's my sister, or that's my brother, that's my cousin. Like the way you see them, like that's how familiar we got to become with the multiplication facts, because then you know the factors of numbers, the multiples of numbers, how to find LCDs, how to reduce fractions, how to, simplify fractions, all this other stuff that's so interconnected. And that's really the foundation, just knowing those multiplication facts. And then you don't even got to stop at 12 times 12. You can go past it. You can go up to like, 15 times 15, go, as high as you want. Distributive property, knowing how to use the distributive property to multiply larger numbers in your head. Like all that comes from like that foundation, because when you do we deal with the base 10 system, you break the numbers down, like 16, you break that down into 10 and 6, so make the computation easier. But if you don't know the multiplication facts, then you can't really do it. You can't really do nothing with it. So
yeah, that is so
multiplication facts.
That is so true. People take multiplication facts. They take that for granted. And then I have tutored or taught students that sometimes in high school, even adults, they still don't know their multiplication tables, so it's a big thing that people take for granted, and they give their kids calculators too early. And they're supposed to, have your kids express themselves and understand the multiplications when you're grouping things, conceptually, even show your child put 2 in groups of 3s, that's 6. When you grouping things, that's multiplication. And so a lot of people do they don't understand the significance of multiplication. And if they did, it would make their child's life so much easier, because it made my life easier, because I struggled in some of the other subjects, but math was not one. And it was because of multiplication. That's what it was.
Yeah, the division too. I was on one of my tutoring sessions earlier today, and I was, we was practicing some division facts, a young girl. And I was letting her know, like, she was having issues with the division. So we pulled up the multiplication table on the screen, and I had to look at that, and I had to let her know, like, that the division is just the opposite of the multiplication. So once you know the multiplication fact, and then you try to divide, it's like you're just missing one of the numbers, but it's the same 3 numbers all together. So it's kind of like a game. You're just trying to figure out what's the missing number. So if you know that 8 times 4 is 32, and then I ask you what 32 divided by 4 is, if you already know that 8 times 4 is 32, that's an 8, a 4, and a 32. Those 3 numbers are involved. So if 32 divided by 4, that's 2 numbers are present, what's the missing number? So you really just got to figure out the missing number, you know, before we get into, but we also should get into the conceptual meaning of like, what is 32 divided by 4? Like, what's really happening? We doing like 4 equal groups. How many is in each group? Or we doing groups of 4, if we're doing groups of 4, how many is in each of those, or how many groups can you make if you want groups of 4? So that's important too, but that's the stuff, like I said earlier, like that's the stuff that I learned. Like, what does division really mean? I never really knew what division really meant when I was a youngin'. I didn't know. Like, I just was like, oh, I just knew multiplication facts. I just memorized them, and I said, okay, I just use this to answer this question and use that to answer that question. But I didn't really know, like when you mentioned like grouping, like when you're multiplying, you're grouping things like equal groups. You're making equal groups, and how much do you end up with, right? I didn't know that like multiplication is really a gift, because otherwise we'd have to just add. So if you're trying to do like
keep adding over and over again.
Like you trying to do something like 49 times 37, you're not gonna sit up there and do 49 plus 49 plus 49 and keep doing that 37 times. So you learn how to multiply. But I think that's significant too, because in terms of how we explain mathematics and market mathematics to young people and even to their parents, because their parents need to learn a lot of stuff too, just like me. Like I didn't develop a certain appreciation until I became an adult. A lot of parents still have time to develop an appreciation for math that they never got when they were young. It's like when you go from addition to multiplication as a child, you might see it as a punishment, or you say, oh, this is harder than addition. But they don't understand, unless it's told to them, that no, the multiplication is actually a gift, because otherwise you'd have to sit up there and do 49 plus 49 plus 49. But you learn multiplication, then you're gonna get to the answer like in a much more efficient and quick and faster way. So I think those things have to be like explicitly told. Like,
it does. Yeah, that is true. The parents, now someone asked the question, why do you think some children are lacking in the skills with the multiplication facts? Now, I believe this because some of the kids are still struggling with addition. Now, if you're struggling with addition, then you're going to struggle in multiplication, because multiplication is repeated addition. So some kids struggle because they're struggling in addition. Other kids struggle because they don't understand the conceptual understanding that multiplication is grouping of numbers or repeated addition, or skip counting, however you want to look at it. So there's various factors why kids may struggle in multiplication. Now there's various ways that they can memorize multiplication. You can start your child out by grouping first so they understand it conceptually, and then you can just say, okay, let's memorize. There's various YouTube videos where they can, sing songs. They can use an abacus. My son used an abacus to group things together to actually see it. And there's flashcards. There's flashcards. But if the child is kinesthetic, you have to let your child use the flashcards. Don't hold the child's flashcards. You let them use it because they need that movement to bring action. So there can be a lot of different things while your child is struggling with multiplication facts. But check first and make sure they understand addition. I would say start there.
Yeah, definitely. And if I could add one thing, what you were saying about the reasons to that question. I think also like completing a multiplication table is seen as very tedious, because like if you go into my website, I have like these blank multiplication table templates, and I tell parents like, go ahead, print them out, and just have students do them. I mean, that's what I did with my children when they were young. I had them just fill out blank multiplication tables, and I could see how like a lot of people, young people, adults, whoever, might see that as tedious. Like, oh man, I got to fill in all these boxes, and then especially if they like, well, I don't know them, I don't know what they are, I don't know what the answers are, but then not realizing, again, I think there should be a person that's more experienced to tell the child, like, especially if it's a child, like, it's not as much work as you think, because a lot of those facts, because again, we can introduce the commutative property. So once 8 times 2 is 16, you fill that box in, then when you see 2 times 8, that's also going to be 16. So you kind of like, it's almost like with a lot of those facts that are in that table, once you know one, it's like 2 for 1. Once you're answering one, one equation, then you're automatically answering another. So you really could just do them two at a time. And then you like, you learn all these patterns. And again, that's when the math can become fun.
Right.
Because you learn the patterns about the fives and, okay, all the products of five got to end in either 5 or 0. The 11 facts, all that is just double digits, till you get up to 99, all these different things, but I think that that's one thing, but I think that's part of a larger issue with math in general, the way math is taught, and it's taught in a problematic way because there's no, like, a lot of times there's no story attached to it. It's very like the way math is delivered is very dry and very, it's like, I like objectivity, but it's like, it's too objective. Like there's no like, because that's where the relevancy comes in. Because like you just make a story out of it. Like really what's going on? Like what's going on in this problem? Like from step 1 to step 2, or even before we start with the problem, like let's talk about like this word problem. Let's like kind of sit back for a minute and just try to insert ourselves into the word problem. Just sit back.
Yeah, make it real
like,
life.
Yeah, like he's talking, it's a problem about somebody went to the grocery store and did this and did that. Like, you gotta like chill for a minute. You gotta like talk to the children and let them, like, you ever been to this grocery store? Like when you go to the grocery store, what do you be getting from the grocery store? Like, so you can feel more comfortable. So you don't feel like it's just some abstract problem that somebody else is doing. So you feel like, no, this is something that I do. So I'm, this is relevant to me, But I think that's something that just across the board, like just has to change if we like, serious about children actually learning mathematics, and not only learning it, but becoming comfortable with it. So I think that's important too. Like a lot of people are uncomfortable. Even some people that do well at it, they're not really comfortable. They still have that like, that anxiety, so to speak.
Yeah, they still do have the anxiety. I definitely agree with you saying. Yeah, that is so true. And also, if a child becomes good with their multiplication tables early, it is a morale booster because they're going to be doing problems faster than other people in their class, and that makes them feel really good automatically. They're going to be doing mental math and everything else. So if you want to get a child to love math, make sure they know that multiplication tables early, because they're going to become very competitive and they're going to be competing. Because once I knew mine, I was always competing because I got the answers so fast because I already knew. So if you want them to love math, make sure they know their multiplication tables. If someone asks that.
Yeah. And as a parent, like just to keep it real, like as a parent, like, you're gonna be in situations when your child know their multiplication facts, and then they like, they show what they could do, and you're gonna feel good about yourself. You poke your chest out a little bit, like, yeah, that's my daughter. Yeah, that's my son. Like,
and it starts there. That's true. It starts right there. Now, let me ask you a question. Now, when it comes to misconceptions in math in the Black community, can you hear me?
Yeah, I get you.
I'm sorry. When it comes to misconceptions in math in the Black community, what do you think some misconceptions are, and why do you think we have them? And what do you think the solution is? Well, let's do what they are and why do we have them first?
So, well, one of the things is, okay, I'll name a couple of them. So Lisa Delpit, education researcher, she's a, education scholar and whatnot. She's written like multiple books. One of her books is entitled Multiplication is for White People. And she entitled that particular book in that way because that was a quote from a young brother. I think she was doing like research at a school. I don't know if the school was, I want to say the school was in Louisiana, but it was in some state. Not to say that, young Black children don't feel that way all over the country because of like, the type of conditioning that we get exposed to. But she was talking to him and he was saying like, yeah, we know how to do addition and subtraction, but the harder stuff, the multiplication and division, like that stuff, that's for white people. So that's the mentality, right? That, we're not equipped to do more. Well, first, multiplication is seen as more advanced, right? And I guess relatively speaking, if you like 5 or 6 years old, yeah, multiplication would seem more advanced if you don't know it. But relatively speaking, the more advanced math is relegated to or supposed to be the exclusive domain of white folks or people that are non-Blacks, right? And that those types of ideas just get recycled and regurgitated And, and a lot of times we joke about it, but, like how they say, like in every pound of jokes is an ounce of truth. So people really feel that way, right? And it's like this, it's almost like a lot of people in the community, we trauma bond. So it's like, oh, I wasn't good at math. Oh, I wasn't good at math neither. Oh, so yeah, oh, that's what's up. Yeah, we all just wasn't good at math. And, kind of like, we take pride in it almost, whereas like, we wouldn't do that if we couldn't read. If we couldn't read, we'd be embarrassed. Like we would never say it. And a lot of people, I think, do have literacy challenges, but they don't broadcast it though. Like with math, it's like people broadcast it, right?
They do broadcast it.
Yeah, because it's like, it's what I call an accepted deficiency. It's an accepted deficiency, right? Because, and I think, so another, which takes me to my next misconception, is that math is irrelevant. So if we accept the fact that it's irrelevant, if we believe that it's irrelevant, then it's like, it doesn't matter if I'm not good at it, right? Because I could just say, well, it's not relevant anyway. Like, it's almost like I can't drive a stick shift, right? But that's okay for me because my cars are automatic. And I don't even know if they still make stick shifts as often as they used to back in the 80s and the 70s and whatnot, right? But so people kind of treat math that way. It's like, well, it's irrelevant. I don't need it. Well, it's like, all right, you're probably right. But because but you're going to be relegated to living a certain type of life where, the benefits of mathematics won't help you. So there's going to be a ceiling on what you can accomplish and what you can achieve, unless you get lucky, very extremely lucky. And that's when the statistics comes into play, because like the ignorance of statistics comes into play, because people want to like be on the wrong side of statistics, because you want to say, okay, well, I know this one person that did horribly at math and he's rich or she's rich and they're very comfortable and whatnot. But if we did some empirical analysis and got some data, you would probably find that most people that aren't able to excel in mathematics are not living as comfortably as you would think, right? And also like the other misconception that comes to mind is that like math is hard and it's insurmountable. Well, I will say this, I think certain math can be hard if it hasn't been explained to you. Once it's explained to you and it's like, oh, okay, that's all you have to do, then it's not hard anymore. But I think there's this belief that if I can't immediately just see it on a board and just immediately understand it, then it can't be done. And that's wild in and of itself, because math is really the only area of life where so many people have that approach and have that feeling. Whereas like there's so many other areas where it's like, all right, I'm gonna try to start to learn this thing. If I'm not successful at it immediately, that's okay. I'm just gonna continue to try.
Right.
But with math, so many people is like, all right, give up. Show me the teacher comes in and starts teaching this new topic. Oh, I don't get it. Like, bro, you're not supposed to get it. I just showed it to you. You've never seen this before a day in your life. You got to accept that. It's part of the process. You're being introduced to this right now, right? But math is like one of the only areas of life where people feel if I don't master it as soon as I see it, like off the rip, then I can't do it. It can't be done.
Yeah, and that is so true. And I think, I'm sorry.
No, I was done.
Go ahead. Yeah, that is so true. And I think that's because in math, a lot of times you're aiming for one answer, unless you're doing like quadratic or something like that. You're aiming for one particular answer. And for a lot of people, that's very stressful, and they fail to realize that even though you're aiming for one answer, there's so many different ways to get to that one answer. And that's what they leave out. They want to think, oh, am I doing it this way? Oh, do I do this formula? Oh, am I thinking right? Oh, and they're putting so much pressure. Math is supposed to be flexible, and it's supposed to be free, and it's supposed to be loving, so you can do things from here. You can do it's so many different paths to get to one answer. However, some people were taught that you have to do this, and this to get to that one path. So when you're taught like that, it's a lot of pressure, because you're like, oh my goodness, I might have messed up. Am I thinking like her? So the person that's teaching you wants you to think like them. And that's not what math is supposed to be. The person is supposed to help you develop your own way of thinking so that you can have your own way to get you the answer, not their way, because they're not going to be with you all the time. They're not going to hold your hands all the time. And so that's almost impossible for you to always think like someone else. And in math, you're supposed to be free to think like yourself. So if you can't get it this way, okay, what can I do? But a lot of people don't have that flexibility because they think math is narrow, and math is far from narrow.
Right.
It is narrow. So that's why they stressed out. They're going down a narrow path, not knowing that there's like 50 paths to lead to one answer. And if they only knew that, and if they were only free to enjoy that variety, then they would definitely see math different. But a lot of teachers don't teach that way. They want to teach the easy way. We all going to do this plus this equals this. And this is what I want to see on your test. Instead of saying, how do you want to do it? What do you think about it? What's your thoughts? Instead of saying that, this is the way we're going to do it as a class. And this is what I want to see on the test. So everyone's aiming to be just like carbon copies of the teacher. And that's not math. That's something else, but it's not math. And so that limits the person. And so some people can be copycats and they ace the test because they know how to copy people. But some people don't want to copy because it doesn't make sense. And they just give up because it just doesn't make sense to them. And those people, a lot of times, are the most creative people. But the teacher hasn't taken time to reach down and use their own creativity to bring them where they are. And they get lost in math where they should be like the geniuses in math, but they're not followers. Some of them are leaders, but when they do things their way, no, the teacher will say, no, that's not right. Do it this way, But some of those kids, when you listen, they come up with ways and you be like, wow, I never thought of it like that. But they got shut down so much, they don't want to participate and they just take whatever and they just give up. They don't even think anymore at that point.
Yeah, I like those situations. Like when I find like a student point something out to me that I didn't even know. He or she told me like, oh, you could, I didn't even know you could do it like that. And then I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. And then you know how you do, like, let me try another example. Let me see if it still works. I'm gonna do this other problem because I'm gonna see if that's just a coincidence or not. But yeah, I would say like on my own learning curve as a teacher, I used to be very like rigid and like narrow in terms of like what I would explain and I would say. And I realized that, so even in like my videos on my YouTube channel, I try to be very explicit and repeat and reinforce this idea that like, this is one way to do it. Cause I even had to like check my language. Cause sometimes like when you're going over a problem, you say, okay, so first you do this. But I try to like preface that by saying like, listen, this is one way to do it. This is one way to do it. Because like a lot of people hear that, they hear a teacher talk and the teacher saying, okay, you got to do it this. They automatically assume like the teacher is like, what is it? Omniscient, like all knowing anyway. And like, so it's like, okay, well, if he said to do it this way, then this is the way to do it. I'm like, nah, like that's one of the ways to do it. There are many ways to do it, right? This is just one, right? I just happen to be focusing on this particular way right now. That's what we're doing right now. But I could flip the problem. We could do it another way. I might do that in another video, right? But right now, this is what we're doing. But I want you to understand that there are many ways to do this, right?
Right.
And I might not even know all of them. Like I might be able to say like off the top of my head, like I know I look at this problem and I know like 4 ways to do it. Like if we're trying to solve a system of equations, I know I could do substitution, I could do elimination, I could graph. I hate graphing them though.
That was fun.
I could do so only if my coordinates are integers.
Okay.
When I got like fractions and I'm trying to find like where is it at? Like where they meet up at? That's when I don't like it. Or like Kramer's rule using the matrices.
Right.
But so those are the 4 ways that I know, but there might still be more ways that I can't think of or that I don't know right now. But yeah, it's important to let students know that they do have options because math, like I try to reinforce that, like you have options. And as long as what you're doing is mathematically sound, then you have, you're not violating like order of operations or you're not violating certain certain tenets that we adhere to. And it's like, you can try different things.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing of math. You know, people have the wrong idea thinking that math is rigid. There's only one way. It only looks one way, and it's not at all. Math is universal. So someone in Egypt can be doing it different than someone in Europe. You know, and then in the USA, math is universal. So people are going to be doing fractions all over, and it's going to look so many different ways. That's just it. It's universal that, you know, everyone can add the fractions, but every method is totally different. You know, so yeah, so but like I said, some teachers, you know, might not be comfortable with having a diverse class, because having a very narrow class helps keep structure, and it helps you maintain control. Because when you start opening things up, it's like you give the control to the students, who are the learners, and that's how you're supposed to do it. But some people can't even imagine giving that power to the students, and the students need to have the power, because those are the learners, and you should be learning from them. You know, but that comes with time, because I was robotic in the beginning. I was very robotic in the beginning, but as I went through my teacher stages, I realized that everyone doesn't have to do this, and this. I realized, like, okay, you're here, that's great, your way is good. And then sometimes you will look at my board and you will have 6 different ways to do one problem.
Right.
And I would let the kids see that and say, look, that's the Turkish way. Look, that's this way. And they would look at the problems and be like, wow, because they just didn't know it was so many ways to get to the answer. And like I said, it's a universal language. And with that comes so many different methods. The teachers need to be more creative, and then parents need to be more creative too. If your way is not working, then that means maybe you need to find another way, because your way is not the only way. And it's not always the child. A lot of times it's the parent, because the parent is forcing the child to be carbon copies of them. You know, how much pressure is that, to be a carbon copy of your mom? You know, write what she writes, say what she say, think how she thinks. I mean, you forcing a person to be something that's impossible. You know, you're putting all that pressure. Say this plus this. And if you don't do it, oh, you punish. I mean, that's torture, you know? No, the child got to be just like you. The child got to talk like you. They got to say the words like you. I mean, that is total torture that some parents are doing and some teachers are doing. And it breaks down creativity, and it takes away the love for math. And that's why the love for math is gone, because people that's teaching math don't understand that math is flexible, free, and diverse. And they teach it in such a narrow way. And if you don't do it like them, be carbon copies, then you're considered a failure, when it's not the child, it's the parent. You know, and the parents, a lot of times, they ego tripping. You know, the parents are ego tripping, like, oh, if you didn't get it my way, oh, why you didn't do it my way? And some of them even go against the teacher. You know, try to see how the teacher is doing it. Obviously, they're teaching for a reason. You know, try to see, you know, and, you know, like I said, that's a whole different thing. Let me just stick to the script right now. But yeah, we'll get into some more of that afterwards. But I wanted to ask you now, what do you think about math being political?
So I think math is very political. I think math is probably the most, out of the core subjects in K through 12, I think math is the most political. And I think one of the reasons that it's the most political is because there's this, again, another misconception that math is apolitical, because some people think that it's just numbers, you know, and even though it is universal, it can be utilized in certain ways, you know, to achieve certain ends. So, you know, it's a very political subject. And especially when you think about the results of large groups of people, like namely Black people, being deficient in mathematics, that's very political, because now you have a large population of people that can be more easily taken advantage of without even knowing that they're being taken advantage of. You can take advantage of us with a handshake and a smile, and we'll even thank you, because we don't know enough about calculations and computation to know that we're being taken advantage of.
Right.
And it really is a political necessity. And this is something that I got from studying the late Amos Wilson, African-centered psychologist, you know, that because he was in a lecture, he was lecturing one time, and he was talking about how, you notice how every year there's a new fad or new gimmick to help to help children, purport to help children with, mathematics and math proficiency. But it never addresses like the fundamental issue that there's a political necessity in order for America to continue in Western society to maintain itself the way it is. Black children have to be large concentrations of Black children have to do poorly in mathematics, or else, this society would implode upon itself. Because then who are you going to take advantage of? Who are you going to exploit?
Right, exactly.
All these young brothers and sisters that do not have the problem solving skills. Because that's another thing. Like a lot of people that are uncomfortable with mathematics and think that math is irrelevant, they don't understand, or they never learn the fact that one of the major purposes of math is really so you can develop problem solving skills. Problem solving skills are transferable into any area of life. And as soon as you say that, most people, they experience cognitive dissonance and they react angrily, and they say stuff like, how's this formula, or what I learned in geometry or what I learned in algebra going to help me if I'm in the street and I'm about to get robbed or something.
Right.
It's about critical thinking, brother. Like, maybe you should have been able to think critically enough to not even put yourself in that situation in the first place. Maybe you shouldn't have walked down there. Maybe you should have considered all the facts of the scenario and been paying attention to what's going on around you. But again, that's the type of thinking that has to be developed.
It does have to be developed.
That type of thinking. A lot of people they never develop that type of thinking, that type of critical thinking and consequential thinking in order to solve problems. So, and it's very political because there are people that benefit from the fact that, because again, we got to look at this, there's winners and losers in everything. Right. So a problem for me is a benefit to somebody else. So as long as my problem is maintained, then the benefit of the person that benefits from it is also maintained. Once my problem is solved, now that person has a problem because now they lose their benefit. So as long as our people lack problem solving skills, which come from learning math and learning how to do math, and higher level math, then those that benefit from us having these problems will continue to benefit. Right. And that's very political. So, but the challenge is, and this is something else that Amos Wilson talked about, the challenge is how to maintain our problems and maintain their benefit while at the same time giving the appearance that they are trying to help us to develop this ability to solve our problems. So you gotta maintain the status quo, but then you gotta be skilled enough at marketing and propaganda to make it seem like you're actually trying to help us to develop our skills. Actually, you gotta make it seem, so you gotta maintain the situation where there's low standardized test scores among urban schools or Black children all across the country, right? Because you got to maintain it, because then there's a benefit that results in that, right? Oh yeah. But at the same time, you got to be very skillful in propagandizing such that you want to actually change that. Right, that you actually want to help. Right. But the thing is even with what we hear in the news in more recent times, there's nothing new about it. These conditions were there 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, right? Way before the pandemic. This is not a new thing that came about because of COVID-19, right? It just was more exposed because of virtual learning and people being at home, right? So you got to if they wanted to solve that problem, it could have been solved, but it hasn't been solved. So that's the challenge. And I think Amos Wilson was correct when he stated that, the challenge is to maintain the status quo while giving the appearance that you actually want to change it. Right. Yeah, because it makes people feel that you're actually helping. I'm sorry. Yeah, because people don't think about a lot of times, I think there's this Latin phrase that I use all the time called cui bono, which means who benefits. So like I said earlier, with any problem, everybody is not harmed by every problem. There's winners and losers. So for every problem, there are people that win and people that benefit. And a lot of times we don't look to think about, because again, we don't develop our analytical ability from which could come from developing math skills. Right. Exactly. We don't even think to say, well, damn, if this is a problem, it can't be a problem for everybody. somebody's benefiting from this. So
Mhm.
then you start looking at the people that benefit, and what you might find out is that the people that are benefiting are trying to slide up next to you and act like they're on your side to try to solve the problem.
Mhm.
And when you look at it critically, you're like, wait, well, why would you want to stop the problem? You benefit from the problem.
Right.
So it's like something's not adding up. Like, what's really going on here? But again,
Yeah.
even that type of thinking is the type of thinking that you would develop from being a person that like was in
Right.
math classes, like really paying attention and like really learning and like pulling your sleeves up and like trying to do these word problems and like trying to figure this stuff out. Because then you're training your brain to think like that. So then
Yes.
people can't take advantage of you. But to so many people that is just like math is irrelevant. I'm never going to use y equals mx plus b.
Right.
And, you see all the memes and everything. Like, that's how they are. So the society is safe.
Right.
Because the status quo is going to be maintained because people are trained to be ignorant, but not only ignorant, but, arrogant. Like, this is something Kwame Ture said. The way like Western society does is like Western society not only makes you ignorant, but it makes you arrogant in your ignorance.
Right.
So like
That's
people will
true.
say, so instead of somebody just being honest and just being accountable and just like being vulnerable, because I know it's hard to be vulnerable sometimes, instead of saying like, yo, like, I'm not good at mathematics, I would like to become good at it, but it's a deficiency, it's a weakness for me. They'll say like, nah, like, well, it's irrelevant anyway. I don't need to be good at it.
Right.
Right? Because that's your ego. Your ego is hurt. You like, instead of me just admitting like, man, this is something that I'm not good at. So I'd rather flip it and reorient everybody and try to like basically change the perspective and make it seem as though, well, this is irrelevant anyway. So why should it doesn't matter that I'm not good at it. But
Right.
no, it is relevant. It is relevant. You just don't know the relevance.
Yeah.
A lot of people buy into that, and it feels good, until they
They
need it.
do. Yeah, they do buy into it. Unfortunately, they buy into it, unfortunately, because they like you said, they feel comfortable in them not knowing, okay, this person doesn't get, they see so many people around them that's not getting it. So they okay. This like the norm for them, but it's not the norm, it's only the norm from the people they're around. And the system got them thinking that it's normal for black people not to understand math or not to need math. But, the system, like I said before, the system got them thinking that. But I wanted to give an example really quick on this one. I saw someone post, and she posted that, I took algebra class. I don't know why I took it, because I really don't need it. And so, I'm never going to use algebra. And so, of course, I had to go in and do a whole dissertation on her question. And so I pretty much told her, I said, you use algebra every day. Algebra is when you have to find the unknown of something. If I'm here and I got to go there, that's algebra. Where do I go? Anytime there's an unknown in your thinking, that's algebra with mathematical computation. Oh, I gotta get up at 6 o'clock. What time should I go to bed? Oh, I want to do this many calories. What should I do? Oh, I'm going to travel this way. How many miles do I have to go? Oh, my tank need to be filled and it's halfway filled. How much gas do I have to add? All of those problems are algebra. Anytime you're thinking about something that has an unknown number to it, but doesn't have to be a number, but in math, we're going to say an unknown number or value, that's algebra. So every day that you're thinking, oh, how do I get here? Oh, well, how much do I need of that? That's algebra. And so, but some teachers don't teach you that. They just teach you that x plus 4 equals 8, algebra. And you can't really see that that's a part of life also. You can make it realistic. You can make it realistic, but they think that algebra is like so abstract.
Right.
But just
right.
like you said, having critical math thinking skills will have you knowing that anytime there's an unknown, that's algebra, and you use algebra every day.
Right.
So yeah, I just
Even
wanted to put
like,
that out.
even like to add on to your point, even like so many people, like you said, they're using algebra without acknowledging it because they don't think of it as, they think of algebra as, x plus 4 equals 28, but in your mind, your brain as humans, we're already kind of, fundamentally programmed to think mathematically and algebraically anyway, because it's the language of the universe. So even when you're about to cross the street and it might be some cars coming. So you're doing a distance, rate, time equation every time to decide, okay, one, should I cross the street now, or should I wait till these cars go past? Or should I run across the street? Or do I have enough time to do my slow bop and look cool and walk across the street? Like, do I have enough time for that? Right? Because you're trying to judge what is the rate of speed of that car that's coming down the street, and how much time is it going to take that car to come down the street, and what's the distance. You're doing all this, you're doing, you're making estimates in your head. That's algebra.
Algebra.
When you're driving in a car and you need to make a left turn and there's oncoming traffic, and you got to judge, like, okay, do I have enough time to make this left turn?
Right.
That's,
you got to judge the angle. You got to judge the angle.
Yeah, all of that. So you gotta do all of that. But again, I think a lot of those attitudes and those outlooks, people learn those. They learn those outlooks, and they learn those attitudes, and they inherit them, and they internalize them. And it's part of the negative propaganda that surrounds mathematics, because in order for this type of society, the way it is, it's very oppressive and very exploitative. We really can't, within this current system, right? Within this current system, there can't be a truly educated masses, because if there was an educated masses, then the small amount of people that control most of the resources and have most of the wealth, they wouldn't be safe. Because people would be intelligent enough to realize, like, okay, what's actually going on. And then not only that, they wouldn't feel so powerless to say, well, dang, it's nothing we could do about it, because they'd be like, okay, no, we about to figure some stuff out. We're going to do something about this. And we'd reach a critical mass of people that would feel like, okay, yeah, we can do something about this. So then that's when that's when it becomes dangerous, because that's when things start to look a little revolutionary.
Yeah, revolutionary.
The revolutionary potential is there. So that's why, like, that's also like why I have low expectations for, like, state sponsored, like, schooling. I try to do my best to make changes wherever I can, or like offer assistance wherever I can. But I think that we have to be, like, more self-reliant and really, like, do for self and try to educate as many as we can on our own, because I honestly don't think that these systems don't have any real incentive to change and improve for us.
That's true.
I think that they'll only change when most of the children have left, most of the parents have taken most of their children out. And put them in other educational
just to get them back.
Yeah, but by that point, it's like, well, why would I come back? We're good over here now, so but yeah, that's why, I'm really big on, that's also another reason I'm very big on, like, independent education, independent educational spaces, homeschooling communities, homeschooling networks, independent African center schools, anything where, like, we can teach young people what they need to know, so that they could be, as Dr. John Henrik Clarke would say, responsible handlers of power. Responsible handlers of power, because under this current situation, if we teach the masses of children to be responsible handlers of power, then they'll be able to effectively compete with those that currently hold the power. And it's like, Assata Shakur, I know I keep name dropping, but, like, Assata Shakur said, one of her famous quotes is, like, nobody's going to educate you in order to take that has control over you, to take them out of power.
No one's going to do that.
Nobody's going to do that. So I think that's what more of us have to start thinking about when we consider, okay, well, what are we going to do to solve the problems in, like, the schools? What are we going to do to solve the problems in the communities? We got to first be more honest about what we're dealing with.
Some people are blinded, and they want to blame.
Yeah, because a lot of times we just, it's comfortable to say, well, y'all should do this and y'all should do that. It's like, bro, they're never going to do that. It's never going to happen. Like, why would they do that? Like, so I just be like, listen, like, y'all keep talking about that over there. I'm gonna be over here trying to, like, help the people, like, be more hands-on and, like, be in the streets with it, and, be more, try to create something like more independent, so that we can actually win. because, that's something that we can control. That's something we
Yeah,
can
that's
actually
true.
control.
Because once you start, creating something, and it start being successful, your kids are going to be competing with their kids. Now think about that. Your
Yeah.
kids are going to be competing with their kids, and that's not something that people want. So
You
so
leveling the
yeah,
playing field.
right,
You leveling the playing field. Like the game
right.
has been rigged. The game has been rigged from early on. Like, so it's like, they want to maintain that advantage. They have
Mhm.
a certain groups of people have a competitive advantage, and they want to maintain the advantage, and they're not playing fair. They never have played fair, and we shouldn't
Right.
expect them to play fair. They're
That's
not going to
true.
play fair. They're never going to play fair. The best thing we could do is just try to like develop our skills, and develop our children the best way we can.
Yeah.
And it's also going to take, and this is going to, be challenging for a lot of people, but it's going to take and require adults, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, big cousins, whoever, to learn the math that they never learned when they was in school, so that they can teach their children hands-on, and they can
Right.
teach young brothers and sisters in the community. And so this ties into why I have developed the YouTube channel.
Mhm.
So because when I come out and say that, because I think other people have said stuff like that, but there has to be a resource that matches up with the request or with the
Mhm.
mandate. So if I'm
That's
saying,
true.
yeah, grown men and women are going to have to learn the math that they never learned 30, 40, 50 years ago when they were young and they were in school for whatever reason. And as instead of me saying, well, they should leave it up to themselves and go to the library and get books, or go on Amazon and get books and create their own study groups and everything. I think there should be, that would be great, but everybody's not equipped to do that. So I'm like, you know what? This online resource can be a place where they can go and
Mhm.
just learn for free.
Right.
Just pull up videos, just like how we learn everything on YouTube University.
Yeah.
And then we have in person, like something you mentioned earlier. I was going to speak on, but I guess this ties into what I'm saying now. Is like I'm going to try to offer parent workshops.
Okay.
Like in person, like parent workshops, because the parents are frustrated. A lot of parents are frustrated with the Common Core math. They call it the new math, but
Right. The new math.
they're frustrated with it because it's not the way we learned it 30 years ago.
Right.
And, it's like, okay, well, we probably would be better off if we had learned it
Right.
in different ways 30 years ago. That's how I
Definitely.
feel.
Definitely.
So I want to do parent workshops
Yeah.
so I can teach the parents. So it's like, all right, well, now you know it, right? Because it would have been nice. It would have been ideal. But again, we know what we're dealing with. It would have been ideal if the schools had said, okay, this is going to be the curriculum now. It's very different from what y'all did 30 years ago. But we want you to be able to provide homework help. So in order that you be able to provide homework help, we're going to invite you in to the school,
For
and
training.
we're going to teach you. We're going to teach you. We're going to have our own certified teachers that are responsible for teaching your children. They're also going to help teach you, so that when your children get sent home with the homework, you're not getting frustrated, talking about, and then your child is telling you, well, no, that's not how Miss So-and-so said I got to do it. That's not how Mr. So-and-so said we got to do it. And then you getting frustrated at your child. And now the whole, like, all the energy in your house is all thrown off because you frustrated because you can't, so the schools didn't do that. The schools didn't provide you with the training so that you would be able to provide the homework help. So I'm like, somebody should do that. So
yeah. So you definitely be a good person.
Because it needs to be done. Definitely
Yeah,
needs
that's
to be done.
excellent. I like that idea. Because also when I was teaching the so-called new math, that's what they call it. I had my students go home and teach their parents, and they were fourth graders. I had them go home because the parents was frustrated because they couldn't do it. They didn't do it their way. And it was like their way was presented in my classroom also, but the other ways is the ways that they wanted to do it, because the kids could pick and choose whatever math method they wanted to use in multiplication. And then they said, well, I like rectangle method. They can stick to that. Or I like the traditional method. I let them choose whatever is best for them because I wanted them to be successful, and it doesn't look one way. And so some parents would get frustrated. And so I would tell the kids, go home and teach your parent. And so the kids would actually go home and teach their parent. However, with you teaching parents, I think that is excellent. And I think some of the parents have to let go of their ego if they really want to connect with their child on a different level. It means letting go of what you think you know and what has always been. This is a new time. It's time for growth. It's time to connect with your child. And if you got to learn something new to connect with your child in math, for your child to excel, then it's time to do that instead of being frustrated and just standing in that spot and you and your child bumping heads. And then later on, your relationship is not going to get any better. So yeah, I think that's an excellent thing for you to do with parents. And so hopefully they listen and they sign up.
Yeah, we're gonna see. We'll see. We'll see
So
what
I
happens.
wanted to talk about math anxiety. Now, recently I did a post not too long ago about math anxiety, and people normalize this, just like you said with everything else. You know, oh, I felt this way about math, and so I understand she feel this way. But people feel that way for a reason, and a lot of times it comes from a teacher or a parent being too stern when it came to math. Maybe the person was uncomfortable with it, or maybe the person just didn't know how to teach math. And so they put all those expectations on the person. And so the person get to the point where it's not a pleasurable thing to be in that teacher's class, or it's not a pleasurable thing to be getting taught by their parent. And so they get this anxiety, and then that goes into their life as they don't want to even see a math problem. They don't even want to take a math class, and they cry and go through all these emotions because it's a real thing. Math anxiety is a real thing. And we need to, as parents, be patient and understand if we're bumping heads with our child, we need to give our child to someone else. We need to let our child go to a tutor. We need to let our child stay at the school with the teacher. We do not have to be the savior when it comes to math. We don't have to be the end all when it comes to math. And it's okay. And it's not making you a bad parent. In actuality, it's making you a better parent because you're doing what it takes to make sure your child succeeds. And I understand you understand math. I understand you got a PhD in math, but that doesn't mean you know how to teach math. And that doesn't mean that you actually have the patience to sit down and teach your own child math, because I have like a personal bond. And because I have that personal bond, things get really personal and really intense. And it goes beyond math. It goes like, oh, you didn't clean up your room yesterday. Oh, you forgot to do this. It's just so personal, and it gets mixed in with math, and it's not supposed to be like that. So it's okay. Like I said, with me, I had a son tell me, Mom, I'm good. When I asked him what to help him with his trig, and I was comfortable with. At first, I wasn't. I was like, what? I was waiting for you to get trig, But afterwards, I was like, okay, he needs to go to someone else that he wants to be with, even though I was hurt because I was like, we're gonna do trigonometry, sine, cosine, tangent. I was excited, but he was like, nah, Ma, I'm good. So I put him with a tutor, and I was okay because he still excelled, even though it wasn't with me. But it's not even about me. It's about my child excelling and me being a good parent to do whatever it takes for my child to excel, even if I'm not even included in that part. So I had to take my ego out of it, and the parent doesn't have to be the savior over everything. Sometimes being the savior is putting your child with someone else that actually like math, that actually can teach math, that actually is flexible and free with math, not someone that's stern and uptight and, oh, you didn't get it like this. Oh no, you punished tonight. Not with someone like that, because that's not how people learn math under pressure. They don't, they might have it, but if you ask them again, they're gonna say something else. What's 3 times 4? 10. What's 3 times 4? 11. That's a stressful person. That's trauma. That's a person that's like, okay, I'm just saying anything so you can get out my face. So us as parents and as teachers, we have to take math gentle, because it is traumatizing. And in every class I went into, 50% of my students started out with that. I can see it in their face. They scared because I'm the math teacher. But I let them know that questions and mistakes are allowed. I want to see mistakes so I can correct it and we can move on. I look for mistakes. If they make a mistake, I'm like, good, let's fix it. You got another mistake? Good. You made a mistake? Good. Give me more. And then, they're feeling free about giving me mistakes. And if you feel free about giving mistakes, then you can pretty much do anything from much. Because mistakes is like the biggest thing in math, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So when they say, oh, this is good, because I can stop and I can talk about that misconception. And that's a whole different thing. I can pretty much help a lot of people get over that one part. And so what do you think when it comes to math anxiety? Have you seen it a lot?
I've definitely seen it a lot. And I definitely want to speak to this point about my own experience. And because I think it's important for people to hear this, because like a lot of times when people encounter math professionals, they automatically they kind of pedestalize us because they know we have a certain skill set and a certain
Right.
ability level. So they a lot of times they don't relate to us because, and also there's this idea of this like math gene where you feel like, well, you're a math teacher, so therefore you must have had the math gene.
Wow.
I wasn't born with the math gene, so therefore I can never do what you do. But I say that because, you know, I still have issues with math anxiety, right? A lot of times I get a bit, but the difference is that I think the only difference between me and a lot of people that have math anxiety is that I'm able to persevere, because in that split second where I get reminded, oh, I remember that I couldn't do this in 7th grade that one time, or I remember 12th grade calculus was difficult for me. And I get that reminder, but then I'm reminded that, wait a minute, I've gotten a lot more correct answers than wrong answers over time. And I do have the ability. And then I believe it because there's demonstrated evidence, right? But it enables me to be able to relate and understand people when they have the anxiety, because it creeps up and we don't often talk about it, right? And again, like a lot of people say, okay, well, this guy, he has his own math company and he's a tutor and he teaches on the college level. He's been a high school math teacher. Like he probably just can do it. And I mean, granted, it's a lot of math that, I don't feel no type of way about. But the important thing is that there's a lot of math that I could do. I've developed this mathematical muscle memory for. But once upon a time, I did get nervous when I saw it. Even as a classroom teacher, I would get nervous as I saw it. Like one thing is, I love teaching word problems and I love doing word problems. But oftentimes in my teaching career, I wasn't really, it wasn't strictly enforced that I had to teach word problems, but I should have taught word problems. But I shied away from them because in a lot of my schooling experience, I didn't cover a lot of word problems growing up in K-12. And word problems were challenging for me. Right? I didn't always know how to do them. But then years later, I remember there was a professional development. Well, actually, it wasn't really a professional development. This guy was selling these SAT books that he had published. And, my principal had brought him in. And one of the things he said, I'll never forget, he was like, there's basically 100 different types of math word problems. So once you learn what the 100 types are, and then you can recognize them, and basically the algorithm for how to figure them out, then you know how to do every word problem.
Wow.
And I had never thought of it like that. But it also made me reflect on my earlier childhood, where I didn't really conceptualize that, wait, it's not so much always an issue of being able to figure it out if you've never seen it before. It's really an issue of somebody could just show you okay, when you see this type of problem, this is how you approach it. You look for this, you look for this, you look for this, set up the equation like this, and then you solve it and you're done. And then, every word problem is like that. But I would often think that, well, dag, I would get discouraged because I'd be like, if I look at this problem and I can't automatically figure it out, this problem I've never seen before, then there's something wrong with me. I'm not as smart as I think I am. I'm not realizing that a lot of the people that are in my class with me and they do understand it, is because somebody put them onto the game. Somebody showed them okay, when you see this type of problem, this is how you do it.
Exactly.
Whereas I had not had that experience because maybe I didn't go to that math summer program.
Right.
Or maybe I don't have a tutor, and maybe they have a tutor. Their tutor broke it down listen, when you see this type of problem, this type of word problem, that's all you gotta do. So I never realized that. So I internalized that, and I thought it was something wrong with me. So that's connected to the anxiety, because sometimes I go back to that place, that mental place, when I was a child. and it creeps up. But
Mm.
because I've been so successful at math in general, it goes away. But the issue, the important thing is, it's like, I guess like with any type of trauma, as they say, like, I guess like therapists would say, like, trauma never really goes away. You just learn how to manage it.
Right, right.
So I can manage it because I'm like, nah, I know how to do this. Or I have the confidence to be able to say, even when I feel uncomfortable, I'm like, I'm gonna figure it out. Or if I'm like a little bit uncomfortable, because I'm like, nah, I really don't know how to do this. But now we got resources, like, you know, we can go on YouTube and like pull anything up. You could type in the exact question, and then I'll just watch the video, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's all you got to do. Okay, cool, right? But before I got to that point, before I pull up the video or before I go to the book and read the book, I still had that feeling. It's an involuntary response. Like I still have it, right? And I think it's important for people to know that, because like, so when they feel that way, you know, maybe they'll feel less discouraged, because they'll be like, look, he has the feeling too. He has the anxiety too. And like, he does math for a living every single day, like all day long. Like he's on Facebook talking about math, you know, for fun, right? So I think it's important that like people hear that too. And also to your point about like being hard on your children. Like I've been, you know, I'm a work in progress. Like I've been like hard on my children too. And I realized that it was for a couple of reasons. One reason was I have such high expectations for them. Which to the point where it's like unfair to them, because I don't give them the opportunity to make mistakes. That's what I had to realize about myself. So I had to check myself and realize what I was doing, because it's really ineffective. It's like, it's not good teaching. But that's the other part. That's the other part of it too, is that I think innately it's a recognition of my inability to get them to understand it and for them to see it as easy right away. I see that that's I guess like a weakness in my teaching ability. So instead of me owning that and taking ownership of that, I instead project out and lash out at them for not being able to understand, even when I might not have explained it as effectively as I thought I did. Right? I mean, because it's been time. I mean, that's with my own biological children, but it's been times when, you know, I might have did that with students, you know, in my class and whatnot. And I had to realize, like, yeah, you're mad because you already, you know, you have a, you know, because, you know, sometimes we're in situations where it's like, you know, I'm not the strongest at this topic, but I'm gonna still try to teach it though. Right. I got to teach it because y'all need to know it, but I'm not the strongest at this particular topic. So I'm kind of like, I'm learning with y'all at the same time, but I may not be as comfortable with, like, you know, the different methods that I'm employing or that I'm trying. And I'm like, damn, like, you know, okay, they're not getting it. So, you know, I might make the mistake of, again, holding them accountable instead of just holding myself accountable, you know?
Yeah,
so that definitely happens. Yeah. That definitely happens. And see, the other point about mistakes, I've reflected on that a lot in the last few years, is that, you know, in my classes, I wasn't very open to mistakes. I wish I had been. And like now I'm big on like mistakes, you know, because mistakes are so helpful as teachable moments. You know, definitely mistakes are so helpful as teachable moments. And I think teachers have to understand that, like, you gotta make your students feel comfortable making mistakes, because if they're not comfortable making mistakes, then they're not even going to try. They're just going to check out. You know, they're not even going to try to do the problems, because if they know there's like basically like a punishment, or there's going to be some type of harm they're going to experience from making a mistake, they're like, well, let me just, there's one way I can avoid making a mistake, which is to not even try. Because if I try, I might make a mistake. You know, because they don't try, then, you know, they don't even learn how to do the skill or how to do the topic. You know what I mean? All right. So somebody asked about my YouTube channel. So yeah, so all this math on YouTube, and I currently have over 500 videos ranging in all areas of math, from kindergarten through 12th grade, even college algebra, because college algebra is basically just a mixture between algebra 1 and algebra 2 that are taught in high school. Yeah, and like, you know, I'm the videos are infused, I like to say, with Black history and Black culture. So, you know, in the beginning of a video, I might talk a little bit about Walter Rodney, you know, who wrote How Europe Underdeveloped Africa and many other books, you know, because I might be wearing a Walter Rodney t-shirt. I might have a Malcolm X hoodie on. So I might speak about Malcolm X. So I just sent Adrian a message in Messenger. But yeah, so the YouTube channel is meant to be a resource for the community to come and just, you know, learn math at their own pace, you know, and also get some Black history and Black culture at the same time. So, you know, at this point, I just want it to become a household name. I want everybody in the community to know about it. Yeah, I want everybody in the community to know about it. I want everybody in the community to be able to utilize it. And, you know, so we can kind of get it. So, and that's one thing we were just talking about, math anxiety. That's something that'll definitely decrease a lot of math anxiety just from learning how to do the problems. You know, I try to be very thorough and very very detailed. And I simplify the lessons, you know, and I really try my best to make it make sense. And, you know, and also I try to show the relevancy of the math. And I try to like really demystify mathematics and really make people feel comfortable and make people feel like this is one thing I realized. I try to make people feel like they're supposed to be learning it. Because I know a lot of us have been in classrooms where it was something about the instructor or something about the environment within the classroom where you may have been made to feel that you weren't equipped or you should not have been learning that subject. So one of the things I try to do, Adrian is back now. One of the things I try to do is make people, whoever's watching any of the videos, make them feel like they're supposed to be learning math, or they're supposed to be learning that topic and that skill. This is like a digital flyer from my YouTube channel.
I see it.
And all of my social media is all this math: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I don't use Twitter that often. I plan to start using TikTok very heavily because I've been told that it's kind of easy to go viral on TikTok. And I would like for people in the Black community to see videos of people doing math and excelling at math. So, and my daughter Asada, who's also stars in some of my videos, she has also told me that I should go on TikTok more often, really. So yeah, so the YouTube channel is at All This Math. Please subscribe, like the videos, share the videos, tell everybody that you know about it. It's really free tutoring. You know, I mean, I offer private tutoring and small individual tutoring and small group tutoring as well. If you're interested in that, my website is allthismath.com. So if you go to allthismath.com and fill out a contact form, if you're interested in tutoring, there's that. But also, like, the YouTube channel is a way for, you know, people to still get assistance without private tutoring. Because I realize that I can't, you know, tutor everybody. So the YouTube channel is there for that. And I also take video requests because I'm trying to build up my content anyway. So if you send me a picture of a problem on either Facebook or Instagram, or email it to me, and you can email me through my website at allthismath.com. I'll try my best to create a video based on that problem as soon as possible.
Okay, so all your handles, can we see your handles again? Your social media handles. Do you have your handles there, like Instagram and everything?
Yeah, at the bottom. So my YouTube handle is the same. It's the same across the board. My YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok is all at All This Math. So they're all the same, at All This Math. I streamlined everything. I really appreciated speaking with you all. And hopefully I will see you again. And we'll discuss math. We'll discuss math again. All right. Everybody have a good evening. Peace.